At the New York Theater Festival this weekend, I saw a 14-minute play that blew me away. It's more of a monologue. It is prolific. It is profound. I actually sat on the edge of my seat. It was part of five shorts. Um, the first four kind of put me to sleep. And I woke up for this. Where the author is Dan Brown. Dan, how did you come up with this idea for Sunshine Unlimited?
Well, it's interesting you say it plays like a monologue. It originally was a monologue. And I had written it and I had met Sean, Sean Phillips, who plays the part. I had seen him in another play and I wrote a monologue for him. And what I wanted to do was write something that was about racism in an untraditional sense, and I felt like rather than it just being, for my stories, I don't like to have like, oh, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. I like there to be a lot of gray area. So this deals with racism in a way that is, I think, not the typical way. Like usually when people think of racism, it's some kind of poor treatment of somebody because of their race. But I wanted to write a piece that really calls into question, like, what is racism? Is it when you mistreat somebody because of their race, or is it just because you treat them differently because of their race? And here we have a man who gets promoted within his the nonprofit he works in. He happens to be Black, and along with his promotion comes the title of being the first African American promoted to management within the company, which is celebrated. But then along the line, it becomes more, that they continue to refer to him that way, and the African American part continues to be a part of his work identity, and he becomes uncomfortable with that. So it's really about, and the different members of his family and the different pressures that come from all ends of his life about how he's supposed to deal with that. So where it came up with, I just was the general idea of dealing with a racism in a gray area way. And then this story kind of just, because I'd known people who, were celebrated the first African American this, the first Asian that, or whatever. And I thought that was cool. But like, what if it was a negative thing? What if it went too far?
Well, what I love about it is, even though, yes, it's about racism, but I think it's more of about how we are not accepting of people as who they are, of wanting to put labels and people in boxes instead of just allowing them to be free and do what they do. And I would love to see this play expanded because you've got Martin Jr., but you've got Martin Sr., who had to deal with Black Martin because there was a white Martin.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to know how he really felt. I wanted to know, was he accepting of that, even though that was happening? Or was there some deep core seated feeling that really resonated, as well as his wife, because his wife had to be supportive during that. But was she standing by him because that's what she was supposed to do, or was it because of fear of wanting him to speak out? And when you think of the generational gaps, and like even in Martin Jr.'s girlfriend, she's like, hey, don't rock the boat, you've opened doors. What does that come from? Does that come from fear? Because obviously he's, at the time, until he speaks up, he's not opening doors. He's a quota. And I found that very interesting.
Well, you see, in the way, I mean, in a sense, he is a quota, but he wasn't hired. He didn't get the promotion because he's Black. He got the promotion on merit, but the fact that he is Black, they were kind of exploiting. So, so that's the gray area there as well. And interestingly enough, the whole part with the parent, and I'm glad, and I really appreciate your support and your suggestion to expand.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I certainly will do that. It touches on briefly with the father, how, it was in the 1980s, and they said, just be happy you have a job with benefits. He's probably working in a job that 20 years before that, he wouldn't even get the job because he was Black, but he got it. But what came along with it is, you're just gonna have to live with being called Black Martin. No, there's no HR that's gonna support you with this, just live with it. you know, and so, you know, it hurt him. It was a bother, you know, bothersome to his family and all. But then they see their son, who isn't being called Black Martin, is being called African American Martin, and they're raising the question like, how far have we really come, and is it, you know, not the same thing just because they're using different words and have a smile on their face when they're saying it.
Well, and also, you know, back in the 80s, if you opened your mouth about anything, you were considered radical,
Yes.
white, black, whatever you were. Um, but in that case, housing, benefits, all of that was consistent, like on manhood, on life, on supporting your kids, wanting to better the life for the kids. So
Yes.
I find that if it goes into all those dynamics, I would love, and I would love to see it as each one having their own inner monologue, but then doing like something rapid fire at the end where you're throwing out what is the norm, what isn't the norm, in just like words. I honestly think this could win a Pulitzer.
Well, I appreciate your enthusiasm, and actually your support and enthusiasm has inspired me. I am going to flush it out, and I will make it longer and you know, build these characters up. And also part of it, just, you know, when with the girlfriend saying like, don't ruin this for, you know, for other people, like he is supposed to hold the door open. That's actually, I got that idea from the response to the Oscar slap with Will Smith and Chris Rock, where people were, I've seen so many people of color, like celebrities, and saying, oh, here we were, it's our chance, and we had this slap. Like, you know, when a white person does something, or, you know, has, they're representing themselves. But Black people seem to be put in a position like, when you're an individual, you're not only representing yourself, but sometimes you're representing your entire race. That's why the girlfriend has that idea, like, if you make trouble, you might turn this into a failed experiment that might make it
Right.
hard for future people of color be hired. So, and also the Martin Jr. works for a nonprofit that helps, you know, kids in underprivileged areas, many who are kids of color. So he, you know, does he have a responsibility to them as well? So he's being pulled in a lot of different directions, which I think is, you know, one of my favorite parts of the play. And I think Sean Phillips, who acts it, does a great job with that.
Now, in watching this play, it was obvious you're not a first-time writer. What is your background?
My background goes, I was a musician in my teens. I wrote music. I went to film school later on in life. I was in journalism for a while, just entertainment journalism. And then I majored in screenwriting, and I did that. And then I started getting involved in some theater groups and writing monologues that were just performed in these groups. And then I collected a bunch of these pieces, and I published a book in 2020, The Sometimes Why, short stories, monologues, and words to that effect. And then I created a live show based on that book. So that's where I started just marrying all of the different writing I did with live performances in the theater setting. And so I started once a year. I was doing shows. I did one last January, the 11 story drop. And then I just started, you know, bringing my pieces to theater festivals. So, you know, that's it. But I have been writing for a very long time.
Where would you like to see your career go?
I would like to see how far I can go with live theater. I prefer it to screenwriting, but I love that intimacy. Like when the night you were there and you saw the show, there was like even parts where like the audience was kind of found things funny in there that I was like, oh, I didn't know that was a punchline. Like just performing things for a live audience, and then they become part of the experience, and you hear it differently because it's being reacted to in real time. Theater is definitely the direction I want to go in. So where do I see myself? I see myself just growing that and getting to larger audiences, and continuing to, you know, put on new plays and expanding the old one.
When I help people in theater festivals, that's one of the first things I tell them is that you think you know how your play is going to play out, but until you get an audience, you haven't a clue. You don't know what people are going to find funny. You don't know what people are going to find riveting. You do not know. And I always tell authors that I work with that it's very important to not have anything set in stone, because You're just not going to know. But I'm serious. I watched this play and went, why isn't there more of it? And I'm normally, why isn't there less of it?
Well, this is, I mean, from the time it was written till it came to this festival, like I never did a reading with it. Like I never, had it read to a live audience. So this is really the first time I was doing that. So I was very curious about how it would be received. Would it be too preachy? Would it, would it make sense? And I think that the casting and the people presenting it also played a large role in that as well, that it didn't come across that way. So I was very fortunate on a lot of different levels with this.
Yeah, your actor was brilliant. As a matter of fact, in the course of the evening, if I had been repping any of the other plays or, trying to help any of the other plays, I wouldn't have written a review because of their actors. Most of them did not know how to project. And yours not only projected, but you wanted to hear him talk. He knew how to put emphasis on words, how to draw back, but to let the audience know what he was saying. And I thought he was wonderful.
It's funny that you say that because my first readings with him were Zoom calls and we went through the script. And just having written it and read it to myself so many times, it sounds a certain way in my head. And then when he was reading it, it was different in some ways and different emphasis and all that. I was like, oh, wow, this is interesting. He was finding things that I didn't even, that I didn't even hear or see when in the writing. So it was a big part of the process. And you're right. I mean, just his professionalism, his training and all of that really, I'm very fortunate to have found
Yeah,
him.
let's give him a shout out. It's Sean Phillips. And
Yes, absolutely.
he's an amazing actor. What's next for you?
Well, I'm continuing to write. I'm going to actually have this play in the Queen's Short Play Summer Festival. That's in July. I don't have the dates yet because they're still accepting submissions. And then I'm writing some new stuff for later in the year, some longer plays that I'm thinking about putting together. I always do like, a show of my work. So I'll probably do that in the new year, but always continue writing, always continue, pushing myself and getting my stuff out there, and I'm thankful to you. I appreciate that. I mean, every creative person needs somebody who believes in them and encourages them and has insightful notes on it. And, and I appreciate that. You've been wonderful to me. So I very much appreciate that.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I help the playwrights in the festival, is because I love encouraging new voices. I love finding people that have new ways to say things. And, as we talked in the beginning, I didn't think your play was going to be anywhere near my type of play. And you changed my mind immensely. You made me see things in a different way, and I appreciate that.
No, I remember that conversation. After it, I was like, I don't know if I'm expressing this correctly. I hope she just comes and sees it,
Oh, well, I mean, a prime example is that when Come From Away was originally playing, they wanted to fly me to Seattle to see it, but they told me what the show was about, and I was like, not my thing. And then I got to the show and I was like, what the hell was I thinking? Because it was a great show. And what I thought was so stupid, I was the stupid one for assuming. So,
yeah. And also I hadn't seen it yet. So it's a funny thing for a playwright to say is like, I can describe it better now, having seen it a few times than, just describing it before it was actually staged.
well, again, I think it's more prolific than what you told me, because it's not about, yes, you put the word racism in there, but I don't really think it's about racism. I think it's about the labels that people put on us, the way people expect us to be, the little way that we're expected to behave, and how we're just supposed to take it. And if you had told me that, I'd have been so into the play, because I am seriously not one who likes playing the games and the rules that people tell me I should play. If you can prove to me why I should do it, yes, I will. But 9 times out of 10, they're for somebody else's glory and to put you down. And I'm like, no, thanks. I'm done.
I agree. And I guess that just all of the things you're talking about, I guess it's just put in this. I guess I was pushing the racial aspect of it, because I just think you know, it applies more to tends to apply more to people of color, that there's this, upon viewing this whole the goes with blackness and what somebody's thought of blackness, or if it's an Asian person, Indian, whatever, or even a woman, I guess, all that goes along with that
Yeah, it goes with all of it.
precedes you even opening your mouth. You know what I mean? It's like, there's a lot of preconceived ideas about everybody, I guess.
Oh yeah, when a woman opens her mouth and says, "No, I'm not taking this," you're a bitch. Rather than someone saying, "No, I'm sorry, I'm standing up for myself. I've not done this and now I'm doing it." And I think people are so intimidated by that somebody would actually open their mouth. And I think your character expresses it brilliantly. I want people to see this play. I love this play.
Well, I will continue to expand it, and we'll take it as far as we can, but like, I appreciate that. And look, you fueled my interest and I'm more excited about the play than I was before I started it here.
No, I'm glad I could give you that. I
Okay.
could mainly, if you had seen your audience, everybody else was falling asleep too. They may not have admitted it, but they were. And, there's like, oh my God, one more play. And all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, oh, wait, this is why I'm here. Okay.
Yeah, we went last, we did it 3 times. We went last 2 of the times. The first time, I think we went in the middle someplace, but.
Well, your play either should have been first or last. And actually, I can understand why it was last, because like I said, it's not like the other plays weren't good. It's just their first time playwrights and they don't understand language. And I think your play does.
Well, thank you. I mean, when, as a writer and all, you write and you say, oh, this sounds good to me, but you don't know until, you put it out there. And I've been very fortunate, with the pieces, monologues or plays that I put out there. You wonder how it holds up. And when you do festivals and you're actually in shows with other plays, with other playwrights, it's good to at least know that you belong there. You're not, kidding yourself, and you belong there with them. So I feel good about that.
No, you definitely belong. We have been talking with Dan Brown, whose play Sunshine Unlimited, short play, Sunshine Unlimited, played at the New York Theater Festival and literally blew me away. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.